Hey everyone, welcome to 2.1 Conditional Statements. Go ahead and try your warm-up. Remember with the video, you can always fast forward or pause if you need to. Okay, if you've stopped the warm-up here, if yesterday was Wednesday, then today is Thursday. That is going to be a true statement. If an angle is acute, then it has a measure of 30 degrees. That's false. With acute, it just has to be under 90. If a month has 30 days, then it is June. That's false. There are other months that have 30 days. The equation written has exactly one solution. That is true. And if the measure of an angle is 122, then the measure of its supplement is 58. It's also true because it equals 180 degrees. All right, so today's main ideas and key terms. Excuse me, we're going to talk about what conditional statements are, negation, and a few other different types of vocab. First, conditional statements. Conditional statement's a logical statement that has two parts. It has a hypothesis or a start and a conclusion. They are written in if-then form. And the hypothesis and conclusion, just as a little hint, usually are separated by a comma, not all the times. And they can also be backwards. You can also have the conclusion first and then the hypothesis after. But anyway, they're written in if-then form, and the if part is what contains the hypothesis, and the then part contains the conclusion. For example, if you are from Pittsburgh, then you are from Pennsylvania. So that is the conditional statement. And if then, H to or your hypothesis to your conclusion. Negation is the opposite statement. So, opposite statement. Symbol for negation is, in Spanish, they call it the tilde. But it's whenever we switch them, negating what we have said. So, if you are not from Pittsburgh, then you are not from, it's just negating the hypothesis. So we could say if you are from Pittsburgh, then you are from PA with the conditional statement, but the negation would be if you are not from Pittsburgh, then you are from PA. We'll talk a little bit more about those different types of negations and how we can rearrange a few things. So now we've got some worked out examples. I'd like you to try and rewrite these in if-then form. You can either pause the video and try it, or you can just kind of follow along with me. The statement says linear pairs of angles are supplementary. So this can be written if a pair of angles are linear, then they are supplementary. If you wrote it the other way, okay, just kind of give you a heads up, if you wrote it the other way, then it necessarily wouldn't be true. So if you wrote that a pair of angles are supplementary, then they are linear. It's not always the case because you can split those up. Number 2, x plus 13 is equal to 15 because x is equal to 2. So if x is equal to 2, then x plus 13 is equal to 15. You could rewrite that the other way as well. If x plus 13 is equal to 15, then x is equal to 2. You have a fever if your body temperature is 103.8. If you have a body temp of 103.8, then you have a fever. If I do go too fast, again, you can always fast forward, or you could always pause the video. You can fast forward, you can rewind. But here are some different types of related conditionals. These are the ones that we mainly use. And I put them in if P then Q. So like if your hypothesis, then your conclusion. So you can also switch them. So you can make it if Q then P, where we switch the hypothesis with the conclusion. If Q then P. And then we've got some different types of negations here. The inverse is the if not P, then not Q. So we negate the hypothesis and the conclusion. So we use that not symbol. So not P, not Q. And then we could also do the not converse, essentially. So we call that the contrapositive. So not Q, then not P. So we switch the order, and then we negate it. So let's take a look a little bit at some of these and how we can use them with a worked out example. And then we're going to determine whether or not that example is true or false. So kind of follow along with me on this one, and then I'll let you do one on your own to check for understanding. But the converse, so first off, we've got our statement. If an angle has a measure of 20 degrees, then it is acute. So now we're going to switch our Q and our P. Okay. So if an angle is acute, then it has a measure of 20 degrees. In that case, that's false because not if it's acute, it doesn't have to be 20 degrees. With our inverse, okay, remember that's the not P, it's a not Q. So if an angle does not measure 20 degrees, then it is not acute. And that's not necessarily true either, because if it's not 20 degrees, it might be 30. I mean, that's still acute. And then our contrapositive, remember, we switch them around. And then we take the negation. So if an angle is not acute, then it does not measure 20 degrees. That is true. If an angle is not acute, then it does not measure 20 degrees. All right, check for understanding. I'd like you to try this. You can always use that example that you just had. Remember that if you need more time to write, you can always pause or fast forward. But go ahead and try this one out right now, and then I'm going to do it silently, and we'll see if we get the same answer. All right, so there's what we've got here. Soccer players are athletes. We needed to make sure that we had a conditional. So if someone plays soccer, then they are an athlete. The converse, if someone is an athlete, then they play soccer. That is false. If someone does not play soccer, then they are not an athlete. That is also false. And then if someone is not an athlete, then they do not play soccer. That is true. Tomorrow, we will work a little bit more about conditionals and do some vocabulary with biconditional statements and check for understanding. Until then, I'll see you then.